Perfect, guys. All right, we're finally up and running, and sorry about the little delay today. I am Dr. Jason Bradley, and this is the live recording of our very, very verging podcast that has yet to be named. Inherited the name Wellness Wednesdays, but I'm pretty sure we'll come up with something else. We're starting an hour and 15 minutes behind normal recording time this week for a number of reasons, but primarily just because sometimes schedules just don't match up with our best intentions. And so we're jumping on here. But what I'm really excited about, though, is that I think that I'm simulcasting this in 3 different spaces, which I'm pretty excited about. So we've got it, going direct to Zoom, which is great. And as we keep getting organized here, I'd love to have, those of you that want to join us for the live recording on Zoom, you'll be able to do that and ask questions directly to my guests that we'll be having on as time goes on here. So I'm excited about that. And then I think that we're simulcasting this over to our 2 different private Facebook groups, which I'm excited about. The first one, of course, being my private client community. And then I've been running that group for years at this point, and I love that group. And then we have our new community, the Epic 5 Plan community, which we put together around our book that's coming out a little bit later this year. We actually have kind of back-to-back books coming out, or I have back-to-back books coming out. I always say we because everything I do is a project with a team, right? And even the observations that we've been able to collect over the last couple of decades of practice and seeing transformations in people's lives and, really helping out complex cases. It's really been a team effort. So I use we a lot, but I have a couple of books coming out here kind of back to back. The first one laying down the basics of the Epic 5 plan, which this, one of our communities is based on, which I'm excited about. So we're going to be diving, deep into those 5 basic pillars of stabilization and what we can do as far as hydration, diet, movement, stress management, sleep and wake patterns. And then right after that, we're going to be refining that book. We've actually started this process. It's actually the process being written right now, but refining that process of looking at the Epic 5 plan and then how it can help different conditions and outcomes of different conditions. And so we have thousands of case studies that we're drawing from just because we've been seeing, like I said, patients and clients, for the last 2 decades plus, going up on 21 years next month for me that I've been doing this. So that's a long time. And sometimes I forget that I've been doing it that long, because most of the time I feel like I'm about 20 or 25 years old. So it doesn't seem like it's been quite as long. But I'm excited about all of that. And I think that the technology is working, and I see my face in a few different places. And I think that that's good. Awesome. And then, of course, what we're going to do as time goes on again, and this podcast develops, my team's going to, separate out these videos that we're recording and then pull the audio out of it and put an intro and an outro. And, we'll have a full podcast recording, which is pretty awesome. And we'll get that onto, the different avenues. So, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited to be with you guys and actually having you guys here with me, kind of behind the scenes a little bit as we are developing the podcast and really trying to hone in on what is our intention, how can we provide the most value to our listeners. And it's just really fun to develop this stuff with you guys. And so your feedback is always appreciated. Today, I'm going to be talking about why am I so tired? And man, I will tell you that fatigue is something that is pervasive. I was looking at some stats. I didn't want to base things on my own anecdotal observations with my patients, because I think that 100%, or maybe like 99% of my clients, when I first meet them, being fatigued and needing more energy is if not their number one, issue, it's in the top 3. In fact, it's almost always the number one issue. Everybody's tired that I meet that comes to me for care. And, so tired, in fact, sometimes that they feel like they've lost whatever it is, that joie de vivre of life, I remember back in 2004, I had been in practice for, I think about 5 years at that point, and was learning the ropes of managing a very small medical practice. We had a couple of doctors there at that point, and kind of were developing a team of what I would call today health coaches, but I didn't quite have that language to use back then. But developing a team to help serve our patients, and providing holistic integrative care. And we were like a primary care, integrative medicine primary care holistic care clinic. I don't know if I make the joke that if it was in alternative medicine and holistic medicine and was science-based, it was probably in our building. We were a medical arts building and we had a lot going on there. But I remember back in 2004 where I would wait, my alarm would go off in the morning, and I was already exhausted. I mean, like I was dreading the sound of that alarm, and I would lay there for, a snooze or two, and I would have to force myself to get my feet on the floor to get going through my day. I would have to literally do like a pep talk in my head to just get up in the morning and, shuffle through the day, do intravenous caffeine. I'm teasing, but, drink as much coffee as I could. I think that, I personally funded the scaling of Starbucks, in that time period. I'm positive of it. A large chunk of my paycheck was going into keeping me caffeinated with Starbucks coffee. And I would go to work and I would push myself through the day and give my patients everything that I had, and get done with my day, brain fog, joint pain. I weighed 275 pounds at that point. I just felt like crap. I felt as sick as the people that were coming to see me for care. And here I am, this, holistic alternative medicine, integrative medicine expert, and I'm falling apart myself. And it was confusing. And I knew that I finally had to admit there was a problem when I would drive home at the end of my day, and I would sit in my driveway with my hands on the steering wheel, and I would have to psych myself up to go back inside, because even though all day long, all that I'd been doing basically was just counting how much time between that moment in the day and when I could get back in bed. And, it was always by 8 p.m. That was my goal every night. Get in bed by 8 p.m., lights out by 8 p.m., hoping that I could get like 10 hours of sleep. And maybe I'd wake up feeling rested and it would all go away and I'd feel better the next day. And of course, that day never came. But instead of rushing inside, I would sit in my car and I'd have to play this game in my head again of psyching myself up, because I had 2 young daughters in there at the time, and they were 4 years old and 1 year old and 1 year old. And I had nothing more to give. I spent all of my energy just getting to that moment, just trying to serve my patients, do my job to the best of my abilities, and just get through the day. And here we are, 5, 6, 6:30 p.m., whatever time I get on, probably 7 even. And, the kids were there and they were waiting for daddy to get home, and they were excited that daddy was home. And so I'd have to like muster up this energy. And this is the thing. And it's like proud father moment. I dreaded it. I knew there was a problem because I love my kids. Those of you that have been, bothering to pay attention, to my posts and, rants over the last couple of decades. I mean, that my kids mean everything to me. Right. And yet at the same time, it's not like I was dreading them, but I knew that I didn't have any energy whatsoever. And I had to go inside and just, put on my boots again and like, rah, rah, rah. And I would play with the kids, hug them and play with them, and which playing with them basically meant let me hurriedly help you put away the toys that you left out from the day. I would feed them, bathe them, get them into their, pajamas, and then, get them in bed, power read to them a book, and lights out and full on, like I was just heading for bed as quickly as I could. I mean, it was and I felt guilty about it, but I didn't know what else to do because I was so exhausted. And I still to this day carry a lot of guilt, there. But finally around 2004, I realized that I just couldn't do it anymore. And I ended up leaving practice. And I was fortunate enough to take a teaching position back at the university. And I really enjoyed that. Had a great time, but I had some downtime to kind of think and reorganize. And I started pouring that time into researching me and trying to figure out, like I said, I knew all this stuff, and I was taking, some herbal medicine for this, and like the adrenals, taking some herbal botanical medicine for my adrenals, and taking some herbal medicine for fatigue in general, which was basically some herb that had caffeine in it. You just drink that all day instead of coffee, and felt like good about it because it wasn't coffee, but effectively it was same effect, right? And I was, eating gluten-free and doing all this stuff that I was telling people to do, but like I still felt like crap. So I started pouring into me, and I just started doing like, basically what I call the human crucible experiment, which is I just started applying everything that I could find to help my state of being out and investigating that as much as I could. And, when I say exhausted, I mean, and when those patients come to me, I mean, I relate because I was exhausted. I had nothing. I had nothing more that I could give. I was barely making it through the day. So when people come to me and they say, I'm tired, I've gone to, numerous doctors, nobody can figure out what's going on. I know it's not just in my head, because at some point, I know that you guys that have suffered through this, that eventually you go to the doctor and like, well, we've checked out X, Y, and Z. It's not your thyroid definitively, because your TSH is in a perfect range. And, I checked your free T4 out as well, and it's normal as well, right? So it's not your thyroid. And we don't check adrenals because we don't believe in adrenal fatigue and exhaustion. And, no, it's not your hormones, and that's not what causes that. And probably, and this is the diagnosis most people wind up with fatigue, probably it's the big D word, depression, right? And it's funny. I mean, it's funny what doctors don't do, right? And when I hear these stories of I've been to all these doctors and they all tell me the same thing, and I just know if I could get over my fatigue, that I could do X, Y, and Z, right? I know if I could get over my fatigue, I could be more like myself in my story, like a better father. I knew I'd be a better parent. I knew that I would be a better parent, a better human being on this planet for my children and for my family if I had more energy, right? My weight, 275. I mean, I weighed in this morning at 160, or I'm sorry, 160. I wish it was 160, 176.4. My target weight is always 175. So I'm weighing a little heavy right now. COVID hit me. I've been pretty explicit with you guys about that. I got up to 188 and change, and I haven't seen those numbers in a long time. So I'm back down to 176.4. My goal is to be at 175 or just below 175 by the end of the weekend, and then kind of back to my own routine. But nonetheless, I started looking at, if I had more energy, I'd be able to move more, and I'd be able to then lose weight more quickly, right? I knew that if I had more energy, I probably wouldn't be eating all the time, just trying to get more fuel in my body. Right? That's one of the reasons I ballooned up, right? Because you eat a little bit, get a little bit high, and then go into a little bit low. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. I knew that if I had more energy, I'd be able to think more clearly. I'd be able to help more people, not just my family, but more patients, right? And I knew that getting my energy up was part of the key. And so I investigated myself to every which way that you could imagine, and started applying, basic construction of I would call it lifestyle management, as well as really deep diving into my internal chemistry, and I found out that while I had my thyroid tested a million times, I really hadn't had a full thyroid panel, so I exploded my thyroid panel and started looking at, not just TSH and free T4, but total T4 and total T3 and free T3 and reverse T3 and T3 uptake and, all of those. Like, there's so many little pieces there. The antibodies, I found out that I had Hashimoto's, an autoimmunity that was attacking my thyroid. And of course, that's going to drive down my energy. And so I needed to not only, repair my thyroid, but I had to repair my immune system to really take control of my health, because of my thyroid getting thrown off, which already is driving my energy down, my immune system getting thrown off and becoming, hyper responsive. So, I mean, we've all had infections before. So imagine somebody with autoimmunity. It's like their immune system is going haywire all the time. Like it's like a mild infection. I mean, that wears you down. Your body spending that energy to have your immune system act that way wears you down. It takes energy, right? So now the thyroid doesn't take thyroid hormone. So we don't have enough energy there. When that gets thrown off, what happens next, guys, is that the adrenals try to kick in and start making adrenaline, right? We've all heard of that before. It's our fight or flight responses. So it's chemicals like norepinephrine, epinephrine, medinephrine, sometimes cortisol is included in there, but there's a number of adrenal hormones that just kind of go up. And what happens is you start to feel tired but wired, right? Because those are they cause anxiety. I mean, these hormones and chemicals cause stress and anxiety. And like I said, that feeling of tired but wired, so you're not sleeping any better. And that, in fact, now you have stress hormones in your body that are probably keeping you up more at night. Now you're even more tired because you're not sleeping, right? And now your brain is working and thinking about all these things that you're stressed about because your fight or flight chemistry is on fire, and you can't think straight, you know? So when that happens, here's the weird thing. So the body gets thrown off, like we said, for one way or another. You know, the thyroid's driven down, the immune system takes over and is being attacked, attacking the body and driving down energy. Adrenals try to take over. We're kicking out tons of, you know, tired but wired energy that will eventually burn out as well, because the adrenals aren't meant to keep up with that. So slowly that adrenaline comes down as well until we're finally just moving from fatigue to exhausted, right? At the same time, when the adrenals are off like that, our metabolism gets thrown off. We're not able to utilize insulin in the way that it's meant to be utilized. Our cells don't get to burn body fat and sugar for fuel effectively. So what happens is the body, you know, with this excess insulin that starts getting produced because of this problem that we're having, we start to create more and more and more body fat. So now we have weight gain, right? But again, we get in that cycle of eating because we eat, we get a little bit of a high because we're getting that, you know, high from usually the carbohydrates that we're eating, and then boom, it's almost like a sugar crash or a carbohydrate crash or an insulin crash. We're even more tired than we were. And again, we start to, you know, balloon up, and there's my 100 pounds that I gained. And then eventually the body says, man, this person, this human being, this Jason Bradley right here, my body's feeling so poorly that it starts to really change around the sex hormones, where those sex hormones like testosterone, androstenedione, dihydroepiandrosterone, DHEA, all of these hormones that help us have, you know, energy in women and men too, but in women, progesterone, right? They start to go down, 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 usually at the expense of estrogen coming up, because estrogen is also excitatory. So it gives a little bit of energy, but it's also excitatory to the brain. So it causes, again, I call it the hamster wheel, where you just can't stop thinking, and you're thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking. And you're just running that loop over and over and over again. And you can't, you know, you just can't stop thinking. You get done thinking of one thing, and then you instantly start thinking of another thing. And you've got, I always make the joke that you've had like 400 conversations in your head in the last 32 seconds. That's estrogen, and it doesn't stop when we're trying to go to sleep. So now we have this hamster wheel of thoughts in our head keeping us up at night. We're jacked full of stress chemistry. Estrogen also causes weight gain because it negates the body's ability to burn body fat for fuel. And so now we're sleepless. Our libido's in the toilet because the thyroid's in the toilet. The sex hormones are in the toilet. We can't think straight. Our body's probably in pain because estrogen and insulin are also inflammatory. We're extremely fatigued, and at any rate, we show up to the doctors and they're like, well, your liver looks fine and your kidneys look fine. And, you know, it doesn't look like you're imminently dying. So I see no reason that you're fatigued. It doesn't make any sense. And you're like, will you please look at my thyroid? You know, maybe you read something online, maybe you saw one of my videos. And so reluctantly, you know, look at the TSH and maybe the T4, and they're like, nope, they're perfect. And it's not your thyroid, so therefore it must be a psychiatric condition. You must be depressed. Because again, signs of depression are fatigue, right? Malaise, something's wrong with me. I don't know what it is. You know, brain fog. I can't quite think straight, right? I have no libido. I've gained weight, right? These are all signs of, quote, depression, right? But they're also signs of that horrible chemical cascade being completely imbalanced, right? That probably led to depression. You know, I make a very silly tongue-in-cheek joke to almost every new patient when, you know, they've got symptoms galore in every organ system that you could imagine. They've been going on for, you know, sometimes years, decades at a time, right? I mean, people spend years trying to find help before they finally find us. So I always thank you guys for, you know, sharing our information, telling people about us, and letting them know that we're here to help folks with chronic health conditions for sure. But nonetheless, I always tell people, you know, if you were suffering for as much as you have been, for as long as you have been, and you weren't depressed and you weren't a little anxious, I'd almost be more concerned about your psychiatric balance, you know, because I mean, if you've been suffering for that long, I hope you're concerned about it. You know, I hope that you've given it, I mean, and it would wear on you. So the cool thing is we start clearing up all of these multitudes of conditions that have led to what we're going to call fatigue. People feel better, right? But they start, I mean, it's not just the fatigue that gets better. I mean, they start having less pain, right? Estrogen, insulin coming down. They're burning, blood sugar more effectively, so they're losing weight. They're having, of course, more energy. Again, brain fog's going away. Libido is coming up. They're starting to get that joie de vivre back of what life is all about. But when you go to these doctors that are practicing general medicine, and they say, well, we didn't look into any of that stuff that Bradley looks into or functional medicine doctors look into. We just looked at the basic stuff and everything's fine there. And so you're depressed, here's a psychiatric pill. I think it's really short-sighted. In fact, I think it probably could be malpractice with the tools and resources that we have to us today. As an example, vitamin D on most labs is allowed to go all the way down to like 30 nanograms per deciliter, I think is the way it's measured. I have to look. But 30, right? Sometimes 20 even. But the literature is very clear that for folks that fall at 75 nanograms and below, so 75, right? Much higher, much higher than 20 or 30 points. 75 points or below listen to what they have: malaise, depression, and fatigue, right? It sounds a lot like what we just talked about, and that's just a vitamin D deficiency. So, that's just one piece of the toolbox, right? Because to get all of those organs working again, and metabolism working, I mean, we have to basically, sit down with the client and individually look at hydration and diet, and same Epic 5 stuff that we were talking about: hydration, diet, movement, stress management strategies and systems, sleep-wake cycling, and really be in control of that, looking at internal chemistry, finding out what organs are distressed, and then supporting those organ systems appropriately. I use a lot of glandular medication, thyroid glandular medication, adrenal glandular medication, et cetera. Sometimes ovarian, sometimes testicular glandular medication that works very, very well to support the system while we are giving the nutrients to the body that it needs to work most efficiently. So we do a whole complete, nutrient assay on the client and find out what vitamins and minerals they're lacking. And then at the same time, really dig in and hit those 5 pillars. And when we do that, I mean, I'm amazed. I mean, I'm living proof of it. I dropped from 275 to 175. It took me a little bit longer, I'll be honest, because I didn't have the protocol down, right? But by 2007, about 2.5 years, I had lost 100 pounds. I felt great. And I was back at work. I was seeing patients again. And then from 2007 to 2020, here we are 13 years later. And we've seen thousands of clients from all around the world and helped them, with the protocol that we've been refining over that last decade and a half that we've put together over the last couple of decades. And it's been amazing. And I'm just so excited to just be able to share this information with you guys and just let you know that, I know you're tired. In fact, I looked up the stats. At any given moment in the United States, about 42% of folks say that they're fatigued, right? Or exhausted. I mean, almost half of our workforce. Here's the interesting part, right? And I said, people that are tired are depressed, right? I don't think it's the other way around. I think the fatigue leads to depression. I don't think the depression leads to the fatigue. I'm very clear about that. I think that depression is a chemical diagnosis, and if somebody diagnoses someone as depressed and with no other chemical analysis, they're being at fault for that patient. But nonetheless, we know that we can get to the root causes of problems. We just have to do our due diligence as doctors to dig in and do that work. And I'm just very blessed to be with the team that's doing that. I'm blessed to be able to share this information with you guys, and just to let you guys know that it's not an easy answer to why am I so tired, right? There's lots of complexities in there. Nutrition, and then when we start looking at nutrition, we start looking at digestion. I mean, are we even breaking down the foods to get the nutrients out of the foods, and are we absorbing those into the bloodstream? When those nutrients get into the bloodstream, if they are enough, are they getting into the organs? Are the organs working? And if they're working, are they making enough of the hormones, and are they making the right ratios, right? We can do the same thing with neurotransmitters. Are we getting nutrients to the brain? Is the brain responding and making the proper amount of neurotransmitters? Is it being driven in one way or another? I mean, we can really hone in on personalized medicine without saying, oh, you're tired, you must be depressed, here's some Zoloft, good luck, go get some counseling. I mean, I'm not saying there's not a place for those medications, and God knows there's definitely a place for counseling. I'm very open that I love my counselor, Renee, and man, I see her once a month. I'd see her more often if our schedule's allowed. I look forward to my counseling time. But nonetheless, fatigue is not an easy answer, but we have a protocol to follow. And if we just go down that chemical analysis, patient by patient, individual by individual, we will figure out what's causing the fatigue, period. And that's it. And any doctor that's like, we can treat that with a stimulant. And then, I always make the joke, a pill to sleep, a pill to wake, a pill for every body ache, right? I mean, give you some kind of tincture of cocaine in the morning, some kind of tincture of opium in the evening, and high five along the way, right? I mean, that's modern medicine at its best. And it's unfortunate. It's the third leading cause of death in the United States for obvious reasons, very symptomatically based. And I just want you guys to know that every single doctor in this country has the tools and resources to actually get to the root causes of your health problems. You do not need to be treated as though you're in a box. You do not need to be treated like everyone else. You will have your own unique needs for digestive support, for nutritional support, for organic support, for hormonal support, for neurotransmitter support. And if you're working with the right team, you're going to get to the bottom of that, and you're going to be able to have an experience in life that is so much different than being behind the eight ball, being in the dark, or in that shade of suffering is what I mean, that darkness of suffering. I've been there. I've been down in the belly of that pit. I've been down thinking that there's no escape, there's no improvement. And again, I just want you all to know that there is hope, there is process. And, I always recommend check out my board's website for a qualified practitioner, ifm.org. That's the Institute for Functional Medicine.org. I think you can also just go to functionalmedicine.org. I think that's their new URL. Certainly when you're there, you can search for physicians in your area that are board certified with the credentials IFMCP. If you can't find anybody in your immediate area that does that, just know that most of us do telemedicine. There are only about 1,300 of us worldwide that are board certified in root cause functional medicine care. And I would really make sure to work with somebody that is board certified or at least seeking board certification. And it's certainly, if I can help out, I want you guys to feel free to reach out. And I thank you guys for, sharing our message of hope and health and happiness with your friends, your family, anybody that you think that we can, be of service to. Certainly have them join our Epic 5 Plan community. It's our private free community on Facebook, where I am on there once a week. I try to always have a guest with me, but at least me once a week for an entire hour. Almost, like I said, almost every single week, where we get together and we do live Q&As and answering any questions that we can answer for you guys, either from a lifestyle medicine, functional medicine, or just general healthcare, or just general life point of view. Sharing what we've learned over the last 20 years. So totally free community, and again, jump in there. We have fun challenges, like I said, group coaching, great videos. It's a great community, and then also you guys get to see a little bit of behind the scenes of the creation of the Epic 5 Plan, which will be our first book drop, as I said, here coming out in the next 60 to 90 days, the basic guide for the Epic 5 Plan. And then our next book coming out will be looking at stats for autoimmunity, and probably more specifically like Hashimoto's applied with the Epic 5 Plan, because I really think it's the solution for all autoimmunity, but I have the most data on Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So that will be our second book coming out, kind of looking at the Epic 5 Plan through the lens of autoimmunity and thyroid. So guys, thanks for joining me today. We're going to be back next Wednesday, which will be September 9th. On September 9th, I should be here at noon. I looked at my schedule in advance, so we'll have a regular noon central recording. And then also on that Wednesday night, on the 9th, I am hosting a thyroid webinar, a training webinar, busting the 3 myths on the thyroid and why doctors fail at treating thyroid, why patients that are being treated for their thyroid still feel like crap. And I'm going to lay out an exact plan of what to do for the thyroid. So thyroid problems affect 30 to 40 million Americans, probably more. And I've been, hyper focused on that. Again, it started with me, right? I was patient zero for me, really, when it comes down to it with what I do today. I've spent the last decade and a half plus actually just studying thyroid and autoimmunity and how to upregulate the thyroid pathway and metabolism and energy. So again, I'm going to be sharing a lot of that on the evening of the 9th. That's going to be at 7 p.m. Central. I'll drop a registration link right, in my private communities and certainly on our Facebook groups. So invite people to that as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. I like talking about the thyroid. I like talking about autoimmunity. So see you guys next week for the podcast recording. Catch me tomorrow, Thursday, in both of my private groups doing coaching. If you're my private client, you get 2 hours of group coaching with me a week. Actually, and if you're one of my VIP clients, which is really just my alumni, people that came in for care and then stayed for care, you actually get another hour on Tuesdays with me. So, man, I'm just now realizing I spend half my work week, I think, in group coaching, which is pretty fun. I love my groups. So I'll see all you guys there tomorrow. If you're part of those communities. Certainly next Wednesday, we'll do this at noon Central again, and just keep, progressing on this discussion. And then next Wednesday night, thyroid webinar. Love you guys. Thanks for attending. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.